Let's turn to foot and mouth. The ADF has been brought in to discuss foot and mouth disease with the government on the possibility of an outbreak of the disease coming to Australia. Agriculture Minister Murray Watt mentioned that the task force is going to provide some urgent advice over the next month. We're hearing a lot of farmers who are frightened by the thought of having to, kill their own cattle and so forth. Tell us what your thoughts are on this latest announcement about the ADF.
Well, the task force is nothing new. That was actually in the budget that the coalition put forward. $67 million to make sure that we had preparedness on the ground here working with the states. $16 million of that is to make sure that there's an exercise with the states. So Murray Watt hasn't announced any new money, and he didn't announce any new money for the 18 new biosecurity officers or dogs that were going to be implemented. That was part of the budget. Murray Watt hasn't spent an extra dollar on foot and mouth disease. And in fact, he still hasn't administered one of the million vaccines that we've bought for Indonesia. They're still sitting in a fridge. And so there's been 4 weeks of inaction with Murray Watt not putting foot mats out and letting tens of thousands of people waltz through our airports. After we put that idea up, he said it was absolute crap. We've said, why don't you put 3D X-ray technology into the airports in Indonesia so that our biosecurity officers can see what's in their bags? We're going to do it with New Zealand. Why wouldn't we go to where the risk is? And we've said about a genetics gene bank. And we've said that there was $10 million in the budget that's already there to be spent. So Murray Watt has left a lot of confusion and anxiety because of his inaction. And there is still a lot of anxiety, and we still haven't got a lens of what's happening in Indonesia. The last brief I had was that the chief veterinary officer said that the curve was going up, not down. And while they might be able to say they're containing it in Bali, there's 22 provinces that had foot and mouth disease, and we don't have a lens of whether it's increasing there. So these preemptive measures would take away that anxiety and give confidence. Unfortunately, Murray Watt has been flat-footed. The lawyer from the Gold Coast is a lovely bloke, but this might be just a bit outside his remit because you are putting at risk an $80 billion industry. And you'll be paying every time you go to the checkout on top of that, every time you go to buy meat or dairy product. If this thing hits, I can tell you it's going to cripple not only Australian agriculture, but it'll cripple your wallets as well. And that's why we're saying the government has just been too slow to react, whether it's been putting vaccine in BSARM, whether it's been putting the preventive measures here at our borders. They just have been too slow and creating a lot of unwanted anxiety.
Getting back to the vaccines, you mentioned that the vaccines are still in the fridge. Do you know why they are?
Well, that's a question for the minister. We asked in question time and got no answer whatsoever from the government. Unfortunately, they're not being open and transparent on this. This was one of the measures that they were putting in place, and I suspect, from what I understood from what the chief veterinary officer briefed myself and the opposition leader on, was that they were coming from the stockpile that we held in the UK. So that was some 2 or 3 weeks ago, and yet they're obviously still sitting in the fridge. They weren't even in Indonesia when we last asked. So we've been sitting there, and this is very important because the potency of these vaccines are very important, because if Indonesia are purchasing vaccines that don't have the potency to the level that what we are offering them, then the disease is still quite transmissible, and that was the advice the chief veterinary officer gave to me. So it's important that the government comes clean, and I thought they would have learned a lot from COVID-19 and giving gratuitous advice about vaccination rates, that they would have at least had one of these vaccines in a beast already, but yet they're still sitting in a fridge, and we don't know why, and they're not coming forward. They won't answer questions in question time. There's a protection racket there that they're not prepared to come forward with, and that's creating the anxiety, and that's why farmers are really concerned about knowing what's going on and having confidence in this government. They've lost control of our biosecurity borders in 10 weeks of government. Just imagine what's going to happen in 2 years.
But we do know that they have got vaccines administered in Indonesia already with the cattle and so forth. Just you're saying that they're
not
just
from
not
us, and that's the issue.
Okay.
Exactly, and the potency is very important, and that's the question we want answered.
All right, and we have to wrap it up, but just on a high note, the Ekka, the Queensland Royal Show, which has been running since 1876, is back after a couple of years hiatus due to the pandemic. I'm sure you're going to be out there if you haven't already. It's the opening weekend.
Yeah, I was there Friday. I got to say, it's these rural shows, whether it's the ECRA or right around the country. I've got to take my hat off to all the rural shows and all the ag shows, but the rural shows in particular, because they're the connection between city and bush. And I've got to say, our rural shows right around the country have done an exemplary job in tough circumstances. We gave them some money to get them through, but it's them that have done it all. And I think we should be damn proud and get out and go and have a look, whether it be in Brisbane or any other of your capital cities. Go out and have a look, because these men and women do such a fantastic job in promoting agriculture and connecting the city to the bush, and we're very proud of what they've done.
Yeah, it's always a fun day out. Thank you so much, as always, David Littleproud, Leader of the Nationals. See you soon.
Thanks for having me.